Part of the Lord's Prayer is lead us not into temptation. And it's something that I specifically pray quite a lot because this world is a very broken and twisted place. And there are people in this world that if they crossed my path in person, I would almost feel that it was my duty to take them out. And there are things that if I saw them in person, I'm not sure exactly how I would respond to them. And honestly, if a Baphomet statue was raised in my town, I would probably do the same thing that this man here has done. And I think it's kind of sad, actually, that this sort of thing has not happened before now. But that's one thing I pray quite often is, Lord, there are some situations that if you put me in those situations, I will get myself into trouble. It's just the way it's going to be. So don't lead me into temptation. I don't know if you have heard of this story or not, but this Christian veteran beheaded a satanic monument and or display that was set up in the Iowa Capitol building by a Satanic temple, and he threw the head in a trash can. And I recently, I just now saw this article that he is being charged with a hate crime for that. So let me say something. Um, it is firstly anyone on the side of satanic monuments and erecting satanic monuments and and defending legally satanic monuments. There's a problem with that. There's a huge problem with that. Understand something. It was never the founders' intention that religious freedom should be used to support evil. And there are evil religious systems. There are evil things that cloak themselves within religious systems. There are organized systems of sexual abuse and trafficking within certain religious organizations. Within certain circles, there are even things like human sacrifice and blood and sex magic. These were never things that the founders intended to be protected free speech or protected religious freedom. This is why it's so important to understand the intent of the founders. They wanted a place where people could practice their religion freely, specifically Christian denominations, because there were many wars and many times in Europe where doctrinal disputes over things like baptism led to actual violence, religious groups persecuting and even killing each other. And they felt that there was enough ambiguity in the scriptures that people needed to have some freedom and leeway and free will in how they worshipped the Creator in clear conscience. But religious freedom in the United States was never intended to protect evil. Understand that the term Satan means the adversary. It's not a name, it's a generic term. What is Satan the adversary of? He's the adversary of God. He's the adversary of truth. He's the adversary of life. He's the adversary of anything decent, wholesome, innocent, or moral. I don't care what kind of twisted point the Satanic Church is trying to make. I know many of them are just fools who don't really believe in a personal devil. They just believe in moral libertarianism, I suppose. But understand that that's what Satan is, and that's what Satan stands for. Satanism, in many places, um, as broken as societies and governments have been, there have been many times and places in history where Satanism could not be openly practiced, and Satanists would be, in some places, subject to the death penalty. Why? Because they're the adversaries of everything good. If they're a serious Satanist, and if they're not, then they're encouraging people to dabble in the dark side, and that's unacceptable as well. As I see it, I don't think this man has done anything wrong. I don't think I'm going to quite elevate it to the level of Jesus overthrowing the money changers' tables in the temple of God that we read about in the New Testament, but it's very similar. We see in the Old Testament that the good kings cut down the sacred groves and destroyed the idols and tore down the high places. And the wicked ones built these things up and allowed these things to flourish and to fester. What do we want the future of our country to be? Do we want our children dabbling in Satanism, blood and sex magic, human sacrifice, and all the other things that are associated with it? Is that what we want for our country? It's not what I want. Understand right now that, well, let me read the very first comment that was posted on this article because it was just exceedingly well said. So in response to the article, no such thing as a hate crime. That's another made-up communist term. Communists know better than anyone the importance of language and words and how they actually matter. They are masters at propaganda and word manipulation. Pedophiles are now described as minor attracted persons in order to normalize it and sanitize it. Child genital mutilation is being called gender-affirming care. Murdering your child in the womb was first sanitized by calling it abortion. Now it's pro-choice. If you are in our country illegally, you're not criminal for breaking our immigration laws. No, you are simply undocumented. One of the most effective tactics of the communists is to coin new words, control the language, and use it to criminalize opposition. We now have words like transgender, Zer, Zim, Z, and all that nonsense, and whatever else they're wanting to call themselves. This is how they manipulate words and language. They do it because it has a successful track record. It works, and it always starts in academia. So true. And that's exactly what's going on. We are in the midst of a communist takeover in the United States of America right now. And you have many on the political left in this country who openly admit that they want socialism or even communism. There's some of them that are such poor students of history that they openly espouse and embrace that. They don't understand what they're asking for. They're fools. They've been indoctrinated. They've been brainwashed. And unfortunately, so many on the political right who are supposed to be opposing this nonsense really aren't. They've sold out. They're putting up a good show of making it appear like they're trying to do something about this communist takeover, but the reality is the establishment encompasses both political parties in this country. No nation has ever successfully resisted a communist takeover. And understand, communist is just one label. It's just one tool. The real power on this earth serves Satan. And communism is a satanic ideology. It It's a poison. And really, I don't know how much say the people actually have anymore these days. Certainly, we know that our elections are corrupt, and I'm not even sure how much control we really have about the potential candidates who are put up in the first place. Probably all that is manipulated as well. But I know that initially this country was intended to be a nation of, by, and for the people. And if you really believe that, or I should say, if you really believe that that's what America ought to be, we need to use our voices to the best of our ability and make our will known instead of sitting on the sidelines and letting other people make all the decisions for us. As I said, it's a sad thing that they're putting up these Baphomet statues all around this country, and people are just taking it, going along with it. And there's so many other things that we need to speak out about. Unfortunately, people have been increasingly conditioned to silently go along to get along, and that has led us to where we are now. It's time for people to be courageous and to call right right and wrong wrong. Let's talk a little bit about the Baphomet. Baphomet's a deity which the Knights Templar were accused of worshipping. It subsequently became incorporated into various occult and Western esoteric traditions. And according to Freemasonic lore or tradition, the Knights Templar, they were persecuted in Europe by the Catholic Church, and then slowly they were pushed out of Europe, and eventually they were assimilated into Freemasonry in Scotland at some point. And the Knights Templar, that is a position within Freemasonry now. Some of the astronauts were Knights Templar. It's a very high ranking position within, I believe, Scottish Rite Freemasonry. Anyway, this is a representation of the Baphomet, not a sanitized version, because when they install this thing in public, they install a sanitized version of it. They remove the breasts and usually give it a male torso, and they generally don't depict the phallus in any way, because if they were to do that, people, I think, would be outraged and disgusted by this filthy thing. And I think this variant of it, I mean, this is a Wikipedia page, and anyone can just go here. I think this variant of it is safe enough for YouTube. Um, but understand that there's a lot of symbolism built in here, and I'm just going to briefly discuss some of it. Firstly, the Baphomet is hermaphroditic. And understand that a lot of agendas or goals of the powers, the evil satanic powers behind this world, are revealed in this figure. It's always been a goal of alchemy and hermetic magic to combine the sacred feminine and masculine in one body. That's your transgender movement right there. You can see the two hands, one pointing up and one pointing down. In the one, on the one hand is inscribed Solve, and on the other Coagula, or in other words, the powers of creation and destruction, or Solve, solvent, and Coagula, coagulate. So to dissolve and to congeal, I suppose. These are concepts that go back to alchemy and magic, hermetic magic as well. But notice that the powers of creation and destruction are exhibited in one entity, and this is what you could call this a reflection of the Hegelian dialectic. Creating a crisis and then presenting the solution to that crisis to move things along in a particular direction, which is what the establishment does to control us. And the hands pointing up and down are a reflection of the saying, as above, so below. And that's a reflection of the reality that there are spiritual principalities and powers in the spiritual realm, and the evil powers that are slowly squeezing this world in a stranglehold want to take the power structure under Satan and reflect or mirror that on the earth as well. And this is an agenda and a goal that has been in progress for over 150 years. At the end of the 1800s, especially, so many things came together. Um, Around that period, give or take a couple decades, you had Darwinian evolution, teaching people that they're just animals. If people truly believe that, they will reject the concepts of right and wrong, of morality, and it makes them much easier to lead through the nose, through their vices and through their lusts. We had other things, like the explosion of Bible versions around this time that sowed chaos in the Christian churches and dangerous heresies and doctrines. We had communism, a great evil, and notice that the communists loved Darwin. They absolutely loved Darwin because Darwin offered a moral justification for the communist system. Public education systems in the West, in Europe, and in the United States were instituted around this time. The Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, and Freemasons all each claim that the public education system in the West was their brainchild and their creation. There's probably some truth to all those claims. Then we also have the rise of unions. Understand that a lot of the creators of labor unions were actually Freemasons, or they had communist ties. This is how people are manipulated. I've heard it said so many times of people, oh, so and so's a good Christian, but he's a union man, he always votes Democrat. Because these unions have been used to brainwash and control and manipulate people, as have political parties, like the Democrats, who, I'm not saying Republicans are the greatest party ever. Unfortunately, so many of them are now conservatives in name only, and traitors and sellouts as well. But the Democratic Party is a party of death. It's a death cult. Abortion is their sacrament, the most important issue that they stand for, the hill that they choose to live and die upon, and any depravity and evil, they just keep marching down that path. Transgender agenda, homosexual agenda, perverting our children with sexualized material in the schools. The Democrats are the party of slavery, of segregation, of Jim Crow. They're now the party that embraces socialism and communism. They're just a bunch of fools and drones working to bring in the beast system and to bring this nation under the shackles of the rising one world order. I'm not okay with this. I didn't sign up for this. I didn't agree to any of this. And I suspect that most of you watching this video didn't either. It's time to use what we have to try to make whatever difference we can make. And at the very least, that means using our voices and being courageous enough to speak up about what we believe, about what we accept, about what is good, and about what is evil. And I fully support this Christian veteran who had the courage to strike the head off of this filthy satanic display. I wish there were more men in this country with a spine. Thanks for listening. Have a good one.